Welcome to Unicorn versus Cockroaches. Today we have a very special guest, Mukul Goyal. He is the co-founder of Stratefix Consulting, a business consultancy dedicated to empowering SMEs across India.
Hi Priyanka, thank you for inviting me over. We never thought that we would be going for this job. So we are an accidental entrepreneur.
Welcome to Unicorn versus Cockroaches, the podcast where we celebrate the resilience of bootstrapped startups across India. I'm your host Priyankar Baid, and today we have a very special guest, Mukul Goyal. He is the co-founder of Stratefix Consulting, a business consultancy dedicated to empowering SMEs across India. Mukul is a veteran entrepreneur, and today we'll have a lot of learnings which he'll share with us on how to create a scalable bootstrap business. Welcome, Mukul. Pleasure having you here.
Hey, hi Priyanka. Thank you for inviting me over.
So, Mukul, I'll get right into the heart of things. You have scaled up your venture, Stratefix Consulting, from a modest 5-member team to close to about 90-member team right now, and you work directly with very impressive numbers, something like 400 SMEs across India. So, how's the journey been? Share some thoughts on that.
I think the numbers are interesting numbers to look at when we look at where we started from and where are we. But I believe next 10 years are going to be an amazing, phenomenal numbers where we want to be. But trust me, the journey has been quite exciting, and it has been exciting because we never thought that we would be going for this journey. So we are an accidental entrepreneur. We are not like a planned entrepreneur where हमने सोचा, we thought about it, and we market researched it, and then we felt like that, yeah, this is the problem statement, let's do that. Like how we suggest now people to do it, it was never like that. It was all about a gut feel, and it was all out of disappointment from the available opportunities, where I felt that me and Chirag, we felt that let us start something, and we did that.
Great. I think that's a very unique story there, because most entrepreneurs generally the cycle has been where they feel this urge to create something, they ponder over it for a few months, and then they probably they dive right into entrepreneurship. So it's a good story to share. Now, being a bootstrap company, tell us about the scale-up journey, right? Did you consider any external investments, or was bootstrapping the default and only way?
So as an organization, we never felt that we require a capital. So when it comes to having an office, we operated from a municipality garden for a year. When it comes to having a team, I believe Chirag and I, we were enough to start consulting to clients. When it came to going for a large-scale acquisition, I think we both were. So we both were a good team to start with. We did not require an office, and we could do it all by ourselves. And then eventually, step by step, as we grew, we started realizing that we were investing more and saving more than spending. Because I have been a hardcore fan of investments since the start, since the time when I was working at a place, and then since 21 I've been investing and I've been saving money. Till now, if I am drawing a salary from my organization, 50% of my salary is invested and saved, and only 50% is utilized. So we never thought of raising funds, and it's all bootstrap.
Right. I think that's remarkable in today's time, where funding is considered like the default option for capital. But getting a bit deeper in this question, for companies which are working in capital intensive businesses, do you feel that they are just looking at external funding like VCs the only option, or there is a middle ground, or is the right time to kind of raise funds?
I'll tell you what, Priyankar, it all depends on what is the purpose of the funding.
Right.
Diluting equity is the costliest form of raising funds, and we need to understand that point very clearly.
Totally, yeah.
Right, okay. Anything which is diluting in equity is the most difficult and the most expensive way. So I believe the requirements should be very clear. Let's not make it like a fag or something that we've raised funds and we are a valuation company, hence we are doing that. No, I don't think so. That makes sense. What is the purpose behind doing the entire fundraising? I think that's very important.
So you're saying that it's a means to an end rather than an end itself. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. It just means to an end. If we can raise funds simply by going to a bank and generating and taking a loan, then why do I need an external fund?
Right.
That is equally okay right now, which I can pay in fact.
Yeah. So, in fact, this is a very interesting trade-off, because often people tend to get a bit scared or maybe even frightened by the thought of having a liability of a bank loan versus easily giving off their equity at very early stages of the company. So this entire trade-off between perceiving something as liability versus perceiving equity as kind of a easily tradable commodity, so that I think is something which is quite prevalent, and I think your thoughts are well taken that equity is one of the most costliest thing which you'll ever part with. Now, moving a bit further in a different tangent, you work with a lot of SMEs, right? I mean, 400 plus companies you work with, so a lot of rich experience there. What do you feel are some of the challenges which companies face while scaling up? And something what would be, let's go a bit deeper beyond the traditional answers, right? And see what you have seen in your personal experiences.
So typically, Priyanka, my observation has been companies who have not been able to scale is one of the challenges where they want to do it everything by themselves. If they've not trusted people, and if they've trusted, they've not identified right review mechanism to see whether the work which was given to them was it really done or not.
Right.
So trust and delegation, these goes hand in hand. So that's one specific area which I've seen where people have not been able to really capitalize the entire process. At times, I believe that the cake in my hand, right, which is practically a pie, a lot of time people think that that's a cake, but that's not a cake. That's just a piece of the cake. And at times I hold that much that I believe this is the only cake which I have. But actually I have to look at the larger circle which is available outside.
Right. So that's a very, it's a very insightful point. And that's probably a lot about perspective rather than just awareness. Because people generally are aware that, okay, there's suppliers, there's outsourcing options, things like that. So when you say that it's a trust issue, is it just trusting about delegation to your team members within, giving them the independence to kind of work and take more responsibilities? Or is it primarily just limited to not bringing in external partners? And I use the word partner generically here. I mean suppliers or consultants or vendors.
Yeah. Well, I believe, in fact, my observation has been the trust is more on the external partners comparison to internal stakeholders. There is a slight biasness towards internal stakeholder because you've been working with them day in day and night, right? So you believe that after some time you're only able to see the weaknesses, not see the strengths. So typically, even if they have done something right, you only think that they've done wrong. Or if something wrong has happened, you only perceive that they are the only cause and effect because of which wrong things has happened.
Right. Because often you're right. Because we tend to. जैसे हिंदी में एक कहावत, and I'm getting into Hindi here, घर की मुर्गी दाल बराबर, right? It's that. So now going into different functions, I feel my personal sense has been HR has been one of the key areas, which many SMEs, bootstrap startups have struggled with. So what's been your experience, with companies? Is this a pain point for them?
It's a huge pain point, and irrespective of a startup or an SME or a large corporate, it's a huge challenge. I have now witnessed this problem post-COVID, especially, where HR has become a huge, not a problem, but I'll say HR as an industry has really grown well because they have understood the importance of it. Earlier, people claimed that HR is limited to a majority segment. Now, again, I'll say from different type of industries, there are different understanding. A large corporate would have a different understanding of an HR. An SME or a startup would have a different understanding of an HR, right? But now, over the years, as we are also having more and more inquiries, I could see that now people have understood that the HR is far beyond recruitment. People want to understand now recruitment, talent acquisition, and induction, and entry to exit, and cultural coherence, and everything. So I believe there's a huge shift over there. Second, we need to understand that the inception from here is that earlier, and for a large extent, HR is something which used to be managed by the owners directly.
Right.
It used to be managed by owners directly. Correct. It was not supposed to be given to anyone else. Salary कितनी होगी, किसको hire करेंगे, कितना pay करेंगे, क्या appraisal होगा, ये सब owners अपने हाथ में ही रखते थे. But now what has happened is the second generation or the third generation of a family business has started stepping in. Now this generation is well traveled, well exposed, well learned, So they understand the importance of delegation. They understand the importance of processes. They understand the importance of having an HR in the organization who's practically consolidating all the information at one go.
Right, right. So you're saying that there is more emphasis on systems and processes,
Yes.
Within the new generation, right?
Yes.
Okay. I think, that's a very valid observation. But I'll kind of dive a bit further back into one area which you mentioned, like recruitment, which is often, the major function which HR takes care of. So, there's always this tussle or tug of war between budget versus need, right? SMEs don't have or startups don't have very large budgets for hiring, whereas there are clear value adds which new hires can bring in. So how do you cost effectively, within a reasonable extent, hire people? What are some of the things which have worked for you or your clients?
So Priyankar, I always give this example to people that if at all we are setting up a manufacturing plant, we always get the best machinery because we want the best product. And while we are doing a capital investment in that, we also consider that the ROI which we receive from this machine will not be immediate. It will be 1 year from now, 2 from now, 3 years from now, depending on the capex total. Why are we not looking manpower from this point of side where, we have to make sure that the hiring which we do, right, is practically on the basis कि इसका ROI मुझे तुरंत नहीं मिलने वाला है. इसका ROI मुझे थोड़े समय के बाद मिलने वाला है. While we are budgeting, while we are hiring manpower, there is couple of times where we hire the manpower for right away. But there are couple of hiring which we do not for today but for tomorrow. Because tomorrow when you reach over there and at that time you want to hire a manpower, you will not get.
Correct. You have to project for what you would need 6 months.
You have to project for your need. Just an example. Again, there's a guy who reached out to me asking that I'm not able to hire a right HR for our organization, and I said that what's the salary currently you look at? And he said somewhere around 4.826 lakh rupees annum, and I'm just starting with the HR department. I said that and understanding his entire team strength and everything. I said, where do you want to go for 2 years beyond? And he said, I'd like to at least 3 times the team and everything. I said, then think about it. You're bringing an entry HR right now, and you want to go 3x the team. Right? Do you think that this HR will be capable enough to bring you to at 3x the team? You need to have those resources which can manage the 3x the team. Which means that you'll have to upper your salary bracket. You'll have to hire someone who can manage for you to go over till there.
Totally, yeah, totally.
You see, that's where the entire wisdom comes from. That you have to hire people who are not solving your today's problem but your tomorrow's problem.
Right. So I think it's also often in our planning purposes, HR is probably the last which comes in terms of if you're setting up a factory or a venture, you look at financing, you look at marketing, you look at operations, but you will not probably look from a HR perspective beyond just the numbers which you need to kind of fulfill basic payroll and basic compliances. So now I think one other thing which is often spoken about, and it's probably one of the least understood term, but often spoken about, culture. Do you think SMEs can actually, or startups can actually create a culture at the beginning, bootstrap startups? And how do you go about creating that? And while when we think of culture, we often think of new age startups in IT, AI. We don't typically associate that with more traditional lines of working. So, want to understand your thoughts on that. How can a manufacturing firm or how can one of the traditional a startup in a traditional space create culture?
In my dictionary, culture is nothing but some core ethos and values and process of the promoter or of the founder, which is practically drilled down at the bottom. A culture also keeps evolving as the organization size changes. When we were hardly 5 or 6 people team, so we created our own HR manual thinking कि यार हम भले ही 5 लोग हैं लेकिन हमारे पास भी HR manual होनी चाहिए, because if I say that you are suggesting us to create an HR manual, do you have an HR manual? In our leave policy, what we had written is this organization is yours and we know that you know your responsibility well. We do not want to bound you with any leave numbers because we believe that you are mature enough to understand that when the leave is required and when it is not.
Yeah, that's very unorthodox. Actually, I don't think so. Very few companies would have such a policy.
Today at 90, we have a leave policy. We have a leave policy as per the compliances. From 5, we had a different problem. At 50, we have a different problem. At 100 right now, we have a different problem. At 500, we will have a different problem. So an organization needs to keep checking their cultural health every equal juncture of the organization to understand that where are we leading to and what changes now do we need to require.
So when we talk about culture, and you hit upon a very good point that originally the culture makes you do things which are right for the company. By you, I mean the entire team. But as you go further, right, policies play a role in kind of streamlining and making it consistent on what's expected out of everyone. But as you are a 90-member team and you have people joining in, how do you ensure that the newest joinee, understand what your culture means and imbibes that? I face that challenge every day. I mean, in my working.
So we have a very interesting thing which I picked from HUL.
Okay.
In HUL, and when I read the book of HUL, right, I understood that whenever someone joins, he has to travel along with the salespeople across India to understand that how is the product being sold, irrespective which department are you from. I picked this statement from HUL and I applied in our organization. Any person who joins the organization, irrespective of any position, irrespective of any department, he or she has to have their 7 days, 15 days on ground experience, which means they have to be with accounts department, they have to be 2 days in HR department, they have to be 2 days in sales department, they have to have 1 week entirely at the consulting side, going to different projects, meeting different clients, being with our different consultants, be it a HR consulting or sales consulting or operations consulting. And after 15 days, he or she understands actually what we do and why do we function the way we do.
He gets a 360 degree, like an all-round perspective.
होता क्या है? A person who joins in accounts is only settled in accounts. He has limited conversation with any other department, which means the culture of accounts department is his actual fact, that this is the culture of the organization.
Yeah. Subcultures start getting created,
Subcultures start getting created.
Right.
Right.
It also, I think, just to add to what you're saying, and I think it also leads to a lot of independent silos, people working in independent silos.
Of course. See, but that is inevitable. Whenever there are 3 or 4 people in one department, they will work in their own subculture.
Right.
But then the one is you have to keep reinforcing things also. In our organization, whenever there is any program or any place where we are bringing people together, the first thing which we start with is what is our mission, what is our core values, how have we demonstrated our core values last 10 days or 15 days. This is our standard point which we do in every session, every time, irrespective of the number of times. So you keep reinforcing. Culture is something which you keep reinforcing, right? Our father used to, and still, in fact, they still keep telling us, this is not allowed in the family. This is what we used to do in family. This has been our core ethos.
Right. And when you say reinforcing, because you are the founder, and as the teams grows, it's not possible for you to always interact on an ongoing basis with every a member of your team. How crucial is it to have those early members on board? So that's one question which I have for you. The second one, which I've often heard, is that the team which takes you from 1 to 100 is not necessarily a team which will take you from 100 to 1000. So is that true? Can you build scalable business with like a well-defined core team, and then you have people added across the across the periphery, or would you need to always reevaluate that?
So 2 interesting books, Good to Great and Build to Last. Both talks about the same thing. One is, whenever you're creating an organization, you need to find those crucial members who will be part of your bus. But that said, not necessarily those crucial members will be the ones who will also drive your journey from 100 to 1000. There is a different kind of skill set and attitude you require when you want to kickstart something. And there is an absolute different kind of requirement you require when you want to scale something.
Can you elaborate a bit? Like, let's say, what's required, 2 or 3 things which are required when you start up versus 2, 3 when you scale up?
So, when you want to kickstart something, you require multitasking. When you want to scale, then you need specialization.
Yeah, that's right. Very well said. Yeah,
right. When you want to kickstart something, you need to have a attitude where you're okay to absorb everything and still do your best irrespective of the environment. So you need to have a very hustler kind of attitude.
Resilience also. Yeah.
Resilience.
Right.
Okay. When you want to scale, you need to have a very high learning attitude, because now you need to really want to scale from 100 to 1000. You need to keep going, focus. So you need to have a focused approach when you're at 100. Now you can't have a generic approach.
Yeah. So you would you're right. So you essentially have figured out the playbook, and you need to just execute that playbook over a bigger scale.
Well, if your POC is done, then now you need to be very fast in implementing that POC and multiplying it.
Right.
You can't keep just doing POC and POC and POC.
True. And so when we look at, because the theme for our podcast has been this entire bootstrap versus unicorn kind of a duology, which is there. Now, when you are a company which is, growing organically, good accruals, strong business model, what do you think are the two, and based on your experience with other clients also, what are those 2-3 levers which are very important, when you want to scale up, when you figured out and now you want to go in the growth phase, right? Where let's say from 100 to 1000, you figured the 0 to 100 journey, you now want to go from 100 to 1000, and because your business model is resilient enough and there are internal accruals, so you don't really need to necessarily look at funding as an option. But the question which I have for you is, what are the other levers which really takes company from that 100 to 1000 number?
In my experience, which I've witnessed, and not that I can say that I have experience of becoming 100 to 1000.
From your clients or
100. Right people around you. When I say right people around you, is the right circle whom you are in constant touch in day to day, and this not necessarily the right people in the organization, but your right source of environment from where you get source of information, source of motivation, source of learning, anything.
So
that's
be
point
around
number one.
people who uplift you. In short,
You are average of 5 people you're surrounded.
Right. So often I get asked, and practically every few days, that how do I build that network, networking is one part, but that peer-to-peer learning, which is what you're alluding to, how does an entrepreneur go about building it? Is there anything which, like, from your clients who have that network, what can we learn?
Well, Priyankar, I believe it's all about keep meeting people. मेरे पिताजी हमेशा हिंदी में चीज कहते हैं, मिलने से ही अवसर बनते हैं. Only meeting creates more and more opportunities.
Right.
So till the time we don't meet people, we'll never be able to create that cohort or that circle by which you get upliftment.
True. And often when you meet people, I just wanted to add it for our listeners here, that meeting people is not just about sharing business cards and figuring out whether the person really fits in with your immediate plans. It's also like what Mukul is saying, in terms of if you find a person who is very learning oriented or who's done something exceptional in his business, meet him, be in touch with him or her, and kind of learn from him, because learning is one thing which can come from different areas too, right? So, Mukul, as we come to the last part of our podcast today, I just want to also understand maybe a couple of last things from you. One, how do you view the next 5-10 years for bootstrap entrepreneurs, given the overall growth story about India which is there? What do you see from your clients, something which our listeners can take home? And second, I would want you to leave us with one quote, because I do believe that every quote resonates to different people, right? So one may resonate with someone, one may resonate with someone else. So any quote which you think which will resonate with our audience, which has resonated with you and which you want to share with our audience. So these two questions for you.
So I'll tell you one specific point with the India story which everyone's talking, and I know that n number of countries I visit every year. There is a vast perception difference now for India as a brand. Earlier, jobs at the top level were not being given much preferred to India in the Western countries or in the Middle East also.
Right.
But now there is a very different kind of brand building, which means if the world is looking to us so positively, certainly internally things are happening so positively, only then that perception is created. It's just not a marketing perspective. Any business which we do, if we are able to integrate the human skill set with technology, it is going to grow. Things which happened in the last 7 years in India, demonetization, GST and COVID, all three things has only grown India in terms of the way how we do business. And next 5 years, 10 years are going to be those bamboo tree story where we have seen enough days to lay our foundation. The next 5 years, 10 years are those days where we grow and build up.
Right. So would this be an area where companies specialize more or diversify more? Because there's this entire plethora of opportunities, यहाँ भी कुछ दिख रहा है, वहाँ भी कुछ दिख रहा है. Should we focus on specializing and going deeper into what we do, or look at diversifying?
See, अगर आप specialize भी करोगे, for example, I have a dear friend and a client who's into umbrella manufacturing. They are one of the largest umbrella manufacturers. Okay. They export to China. Mm-hmm. Okay. Oh, wow. Understand the analogy. They export to China.
They export to China. Yeah, that's unique. Yeah.
Okay. When they grew, they so much that they did an entire reverse engineering under them.
Okay.
One umbrella requires close to around 100 components.
Okay, so they did
85% to 90% of components are all manufactured inside. Be it the cloth, be it the seal edges, be it the powdering machine, everything is what they have done in-house capability.
So they backward integrated essentially.
They backward integrated. Now, what they did, they backward integrated. Over the years, they become self-sufficient. Now, the textile company which they started solely to supply their forward engineering of umbrella has been so large that now it has also started selling to other players.
Mm-hmm. Got it. So then they basically went backward and then they diversified.
Correct. In a similar line, there are organizations where another client, a client, or not a client, but in fact I'll say they're a friend, right? They're into stationery and they're into toys.
Okay.
Now they're into stationery, they're into toys, they're into crockery, they are into other industry also, right? So what they've done, they have pooled their diversification from one industry to another industry. But the target audience is very same.
Okay. So
except the crockery part, stationery and kids both has stationery and both has the same target audience, which is kids.
Got it. So in their case, the target audience is the same, but they are all the common denominator for the diversification is the same target audience. You're saying, right? So that's, I think, a very important point for our listeners is that whenever you diversify, also, right, is there a common synergy which you can take out of that diversification? Either a same customer or a similar supply base, or backward or forward integration. So that's very well said, Mukul. And what's probably the last thing now, in terms of what's that one quote which is, which has stayed with you through these many years?
So over the years, I have always learned one quote very clearly. If you don't know the skill set, buy it. Don't invest time in learning it.
Oh, that's a very, I would say it's a very powerful quote. It is often we tend to think, most of entrepreneurs, we tend to think that ये तो हम बना ही लेंगे, या तो हम ये better कर लेंगे than getting it from the market. And often the cost of that time and learning is so high that if you factor that in, it makes sense to just buy it and go along. I think that's very, I think, a remarkable insight there. Thank you once again, Mukul, for spending some time with us and sharing your wisdom. I think some real nuggets of insight there for our audience. And we wish you and your organization best wishes for the coming years. I truly believe there's going to be a golden period for India. And, all of us look forward to contributing further. Thank you, Mukul. And for our subscribers, for our audience, if you found this episode useful, please do make sure to subscribe more for content like this. We are looking at building a story and a content around bootstrapping, sharing some real nuggets of wisdom from founders who have done without VC money, building business the old-fashioned way, So until next time, keep learning, keep pushing the boundaries, and keep getting better every day. Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you, Mukul. Bye.
Thank you, Priyanka. Thank you. Thanks a lot for the opportunity.
Bye-bye.